Well, at first glance, this gospel story would seem to be about good posture. And I actually have a good posture story to share with you all this morning. Back when I was serving the parish in Dobbs Ferry, New York, we had a very grand and fancy wedding at the church, and I was invited to the reception afterwards. And I was seated at the bridegroom and the bride's table with both of their parents. And through the course of the reception, the mother of the bride would look across the table and say a single word to her daughter, which was Daisy. Now, at first I thought this was maybe a term of endearment, that, some nickname, and they were sharing a wonderful celebratory moment. But that wasn't the case. Because at one point, the mother noticed that I had caught the exchange of the word Daisy, and I was looking quizzical. So she said, "Oh, Father, I see you've heard me talk to my daughter and say Daisy. What it means is," and I said something like, "Oh, is that her nickname?" And she said, "Oh, no. She said she went to Miss Porter's, and at Miss Porter's, if any of the girls didn't have perfect posture, they would say to them, 'Daisy,' and immediately they would straighten up." It was a very long reception. We have this really wonderful story in Luke's gospel today, not just about posture, but that is certainly the kernel of the story in terms of its grounding in the healing of this woman from something that has plagued her for 18 years, and what it means in terms of her life, the life of the community that witnesses this, and I think probably even more importantly, what it means to us as a community of faith. So there are many details in this story that I find actually very moving as I think about them. First of all, Jesus is not asked by the woman to be healed. Jesus sees her and sees what she's dealing with, her condition, and decides to make her whole, to heal her from this infirmity. Now, being so bent over that you can only see the ground is not a minor infirmity. It's a life-changing condition in the way that you live your life and the way you see the world, and perhaps most importantly, how you see yourself in the world. Now, I identify with the woman in this story, not only because I don't have the greatest posture, but it reminds me of what it's like to hike with Tim on vacation. Tim is an inveterate hiker, and the higher the hill or mountain that he can find, the happier he is. The higher the humidity, the more mosquitoes, all of it goes into making him a happy hiker. And from time to time, I think it's important in our relationship to share experiences, so I'll go along with him, albeit reluctantly. And invariably, I'll find myself perspiring, worrying about breaking a bone, and my eyes fixed on the ground in front of me. Tim's pointing to great vistas and views that can be seen on every side, and I'm looking at the dirt and roots right in front of me. And that vision, that way of seeing or occupation with looking down, is what's at the heart of the story. This poor woman is suffering from a condition which so severely limits who she is and what she does. Think about it for a moment. Here she is, unable to do all the things that we take for granted, to be able to look into each other's faces, to be able to see her family and friends, to be able to participate in worship, looking up to what is happening as the community of Jews gathers. We're told that she's a faithful Jew. and also all the other things that she never gets to see. Think about not being able to go out at night and look at the sky, not be able to look up and see a beautiful sunset, not to be able to look up to what everyone else says, oh, look at that. All that part of what she's missing through this terrible infirmity. And I'm very moved by Jesus knowing all of that. She does not ask to be healed. He says to her, you are healed. He lays his hands on her, and she's healed and upright for the first time in 18 years. Now, for those witnessing it, it must have been an extraordinary moment. Certainly for her, it was life-changing. And don't you know, there comes the clergy to throw a bucket of water on it. We're told that the leader of the synagogue is annoyed that this has happened on the Sabbath. And he confronts Jesus and says to the crowd, why are you doing this on the Sabbath day? Are there not 7 days in the week? Come back another day. But on the Sabbath, no work is to be done. Well, it's clear Jesus doesn't see healing as work. He answers the leader of the synagogue and says, you're a hypocrite. If your livestock is thirsty, you'll bring them water on the Sabbath day. Why not change this woman's life and make her whole on the Sabbath? So another part of the story that moves me is that God's grace and presence is outside of the institutional church. It doesn't take away from existing communities of faith, but I think it's meant to remind communities of faith that God's grace and presence is not confined to a building or even to a faith community. We're set in the midst of the real world with real people who all of them need healing in some way. So for me, the story is really about seeing and vision. It's about how we need to be able to take our gaze from the ground, from the daily grind, from the things that concern us and weigh us down, and look up. It's obviously not only just a story about a physical healing, but it's also meant to be an image or a metaphor for our own spiritual lives, our own lives of faith. How often we're burdened and held down by the worries that beset us, our anxieties, our anger, our fears, and God would have us look up to all that can be, the world around us, and most especially the people in this world. So for me, the other thing that's so moving about this gospel story is that it invites us, I think, to see God face to face. Remember, in the Jewish tradition, people averted their eyes or their face from the presence of God. Think of Moses and the burning bush. And in Hebrews, we're told that the kingdom is so powerful, the presence of God is so fearsome, that people are afraid to look directly into the face of God. But along comes Jesus, the Son of God, and tells us all, look up. Look for God in your lives. Look for God in the miracles and the beauty of this world and in the people all around you. And in that, there's healing. And there's also the challenge of our life of faith. Because we're meant to see deeply and to feel deeply. We're meant to engage the world in a profound way, not just be having our vision confined to the path that we're on, but to look up and point to all that's around us. The healing is, of course, for us, but it's more than that as well. As David so rightfully pointed out in the prophecy of Jeremiah, Jeremiah is talking about a personal, deep, intimate relationship with God. Christians didn't invent that. It's from our Jewish tradition. A deep, loving relationship with God. And so in Jeremiah, when God says, you're going to do this, this, and this, the young boy, the young prophet says, I'm only a boy, I can't do this. And isn't that so often what we say when we hear God's voice asking us to see God in the world, to see injustice, brokenness, and to be asked to participate in its healing? Don't we say, I'm only one person, what can I do? We're only one congregation, what can we do? We're only one denomination, what can we do? Well, according to God and his relationship with Jeremiah, everything. We're called to make sure that our vision is set on the world, set on God, set on all the things that God would have us see that we can't see if our eyes are fixed on the ground. You know, there's a wonderful opportunity that St. Peter's has right now, and that is the opportunity to engage the community around us through our outreach programs. We're about to come up later this fall with an event that will help fund our outreach giving here at St. Peter's. And that will give us the resources to make a real difference in our community, to continue to look and to see where need might be. Need created by fear, insecurity, poverty, anger, brokenness. We at St. Peter's have the chance to make real differences in the world around us. And one of the ways of doing that is through outreach. So we will do greater things together. Through your generosity and support, both of this event and your support of this faith community, we will be able to do, I hope and pray, more and more, to see more and to respond more. You know, we very carefully look at all the programs we support, and we make site visits every year. And on my first site visit with the Outreach Committee, I asked a question which I've always asked with outreach program funding in each of the parishes I've served. Usually at these site visits, we're shown around the property, meet the staff, perhaps people they serve. We see the context of where they're doing this great programming and work. And then we talk about their budget and their financial needs. And when all that's done, I love asking the question and thanking them for the wonderful presentation they've made, but ask them, what's the one thing that you've not been able to do? What's your dream as an organization? What would you do if you could do anything? And the answer is often extraordinary. It gets to the heart of what those organizations are about. And I think St. Peter's has the ability to be able to answer those dreams and make them real. It's a very exciting moment, I think, for all of us. So don't let Jeremiah's first response be yours. What can we do? We're only individuals. We're only one congregation. But instead, ask the question, What can I do? What can I see in the world that I can make a difference? That we can make a difference together as a congregation? Where do we look to see the face of God? We see it in the world all around us, if we'll only look, if we'll only take our eyes from the ground and look to the heavens. So, we'll do this wonderful work together. I hope and pray that we'll do it to be part of our calling as the people of God. But it's also deeply who you all are, a generous, kind, and compassionate congregation that will do more together. And what we'll do well and encourage people to dream. Amen.